Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are tackling a totally massive topic, but honestly, one that is completely transforming our reality. We're going to demystify neural networks. I mean, you hear the term absolutely everywhere, right? But what does it actually mean? Well, today, we are popping open the hood to look directly at the engine powering almost every modern AI system out there. My goal is to make sure that by the time we wrap up, you completely understand the core mechanics of how machines think, and we're going to do it step by step.
To avoid any kind of information overload, we've broken this intimidating topic down into 5 really digestible steps. We'll start with the brain and software, check out the anatomy of a network, see how machines actually learn, look at when learning goes wrong, and finish up with AI in the real world. Let's jump in.
Step 1. The brain in software. 86 billion. Literally, right at this very second, your brain has 86 billion neurons firing just to help you process and understand the words I'm saying right now. It's an absolute biological marvel. And it's exactly what engineers were looking at when they had this huge realization. They thought, wait, what if we built something just like that, but in software?
Now, what's really interesting about this definition is how it translates that biological inspiration into, well, our formal definition. A neural network is a computational model loosely inspired by the human brain, consisting of layers of connected nodes that pass signals to each other. So instead of biological cells, we're dealing with digital nodes. But the underlying concept, it remains exactly the same. It's this vast web of connections transmitting information.
Moving to step 2, anatomy of a network.
Think of it like this. Data flows from left to right across 3 distinct stages. Step 1 is the input layer. That's where the raw data enters the system. Step 2 is the hidden layers. This is kind of the famous black box where all the heavy lifting and pattern recognition actually happens. And step 3 is the output layer, giving us the final prediction or answer. Now, depth is incredibly important here. Deeper networks, meaning ones with a lot more of these hidden layers, can recognize increasingly abstract patterns. So in a deep network processing an image, the first layer might just see basic lines, right? The next layer turns those lines into shapes, and then the next layer turns those shapes into human faces.
Okay, so we've got the high-level macro architecture down. We see the big layers. But to really demystify this whole thing, we have to ask, what happens inside a single individual node? What is one digital neuron actually doing?
Look, don't let the math freak you out here. This equation is actually beautiful in its simplicity. Inside every single node, an output is calculated. The node receives inputs from the previous layer. It then multiplies each input by a weight, which honestly you can just think of as an importance score. It sums all of those up, adds a little baseline adjustment called a bias, and then passes it all through an activation function. These activation functions are basically mathematical gates. They look at that final summed up number and decide, hey, is this signal strong enough to pass forward to the next layer? That is the micromechanic powering the whole shebang. Inputs, importance scores, and a mathematical gatekeeper.
Let's hit step 3. How machines actually learn.
Training a neural network is, at its core, just an endless, iterative cycle of trial and error. First, we feed the network thousands of labeled examples. Imagine showing it thousands of photos explicitly labeled either cat or dog. Next, the network takes a guess. It makes a prediction based on its current untrained state. Finally, and this is the magic part, we adjust the weights, those importance scores we just talked about, every single time the network gets the answer wrong. It's just a continuous loop of guessing, failing, and tweaking.
But how on earth does it know which weights to tweak? Well, that brings us to one of the most absolutely crucial concepts in all of AI, backpropagation. When the network makes a mistake at that final output layer, backpropagation is the algorithm that literally works backwards through the entire network to figure out exactly which weights were responsible for the error and adjust them. It is quite literally a mechanism for learning from your mistakes by tracing the failure all the way back to its root cause.
And this brilliantly illustrates the mathematical engine driving those adjustments: gradient descent. Gradient descent is just the mathematical process of finding the lowest possible error step by step. If the math sounds a little abstract, just picture a ball rolling down a bumpy hill to find the lowest point in a valley. The height of the hill? That's the amount of error in the network's prediction. By adjusting the weights step by step, the algorithm is essentially rolling the ball down the slope until it reaches the absolute bottom, which represents the lowest possible error rate and the highest possible accuracy. Make sense?
Step 4. When learning goes wrong.
So the crucial point here is understanding a major trap called overfitting. See, the true goal of a neural network is to learn general, underlying patterns so it can recognize completely new, unseen data. But sometimes a network falls into the trap of overfitting. Actually, think of it like a flawed student who just memorizes the exact answers to a specific practice test, but then totally bombs the final exam because they never actually understood the underlying subject matter. They just memorized. If a network overfits, it hasn't truly learned, it's just memorized the training data.
Finally, step 5, AI in the real world.
Now, neural networks aren't just one giant monolith. They actually come in specialized types. First up, we have CNNs, or convolutional neural networks. Their specialty is images. They scan tiny patches of a photo to detect edges, textures, and objects. Then we have RNNs, or recurrent neural networks. These are great for sequences like text or audio because their core function allows them to actually retain a memory of previous inputs. And finally, transformers. This is the big one, the architecture behind modern large language models like ChatGPT. While they aren't RNNs, they still completely rely on the exact same core principles of weighted connections and training that we just learned about, just applied to generate unbelievably complex language.
So, where are you actually interacting with these models? Oh, everywhere. That Face Unlock feature on your smartphone, it uses CNNs to map your features. When Google Photos miraculously groups all the pictures of your best friend together, that's a neural network at work. When your bank shoots you a text about unusual activity, yep, it's a neural network spotting anomalies in the fraud detection system. And those annoying scam emails that mysteriously skip your inbox, you can thank a neural network acting as a spam filter for catching that pattern. This invisible web of nodes and weights is already actively managing your daily digital life.
Well, you made it. You now understand the biological inspiration, the math behind the nodes, the rolling ball of gradient descent, and the specialized networks running our modern world. You literally know the brain behind AI. The magic of the machine is now just logic and architecture to you. But this is really just the beginning. So what else in your world needs explaining? Make sure to subscribe to our channel because every single week we take another complex piece of the world you live in, but maybe never had explained to you, and we break it down perfectly. Thanks for learning with me today. Catch you next time.